Alrighty. Well, welcome to Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast. Just for those of you who don't know, that is definitely not our podcast name. That's probably copyrighted. That's from the Quarry. Great game. Wendy Wu's in it, so
Well, it's probably
definitely check it
great if you
out.
get a good ending.
Well, we should probably get an ending first. We'll have to do that sometime. Um, so anyway, we're here. We are starting this Last of Us podcast, and unfortunately, Tyler, I have some bad news.
Hmm.
Um,
You didn't watch the
we,
episode?
no, I did. So yeah, this podcast is about
You just
us
played the game?
comparing the last. Yeah, no, actually, what's the game?
I think it's
I,
called Resident Evil.
oh yeah, my favorite. Like with Graham.
Yeah, Graham. Stan.
Dude, it's Gran.
Wait, I'm not in there. Wash my hands. What happened?
Well, I found Gran.
With Graham. So anyway, so what we're doing, the goal of this podcast is that we are watching the new HBO series The Last of Us, based off of the video game, the PlayStation exclusive, also called The Last of Us, if you didn't know. Forehead. The unfortunate news is that we were not the only people that had this idea to do a podcast about The Last of Us.
Well, I'm sure.
You
There's
want to know who beat us though?
Is it Anakin?
No. Our man Troy Baker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I looked up on Spotify because I was wondering. I was like, okay, we're gonna put this on Spotify and stuff. And I just look up The Last of Us,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was gonna listen to some of the music before it kind of get me in the zone.
Sure.
While I was waiting for you, and there was things to The Last of Us. What's it? HBO The Last of Us podcast. It said by, and I looked at it and I was like, no way, somebody beat us to it, and it's got Troy Baker, so can't really be mad.
Well, I know that him and Ashley Johnson were on set at least a little bit, and so I'd be interested in hearing any
Yeah.
like behind the scenes stuff that he's got, going on there.
Yes, that would be very good. So, I guess to start off, I thought about this before I watched the show and everything, like thinking about all the stuff about The Last of Us. And so, my question, to kind of kick us off,
Mm-hmm.
is would you rather live half of your life in a pre-apocalyptic world and half of it in an apocalyptic world like Joel, or be like Ellie, born and raised in the post-apocalyptic world and everything?
Oh shoot, you started out with a good question there.
It's just the
Uh,
first thing that came to my head.
well, I sure don't want Joel's life, that's for sure.
Well, yeah. Not like, you're just like, well, I mean, obviously, if you are, pre, outbreak, you're going to go through something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what would you rather have?
I think I would have to go with Ellie on that one. Uh, just because I think if you're raised in something, it's there's not as much of like need to adapt to things as much as it's just you just grow up with it and you kind of take it
Mhm.
for granted. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Because I think the bad thing about living Joel is thinking about the good old days. Ellie doesn't have good old days. It's just this is how life is. But
Yeah.
yeah, in all honesty, like they're both not ideal. They're both pretty
Yeah, no,
sucky.
definitely. If you, I was thinking about this. I mean, not, I guess, hard enough where I have like a set decision, because I mean, Joel, he's got a lot of pros because he actually got to experience a nice life before, all this stuff. A lot of people like Ellie, she's like, I don't even know what half this stuff is, so he was able to explain it to her. Maybe that was sad for her. Maybe that was nice to rethink. I don't know. I think there's both.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't. Yeah, I don't. I would rather just kind of live my life the way it is right now. I don't know about you, but not none of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
guess there is the question of is it better to have had what Joel had at one point, you know what I mean, than to have never had that at all.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, and you users out there listening to our podcast, I don't know if anyone's gonna listen to this besides just us on repeat and like my sister. But
Thanks, sister.
let us know. Yeah, tweet us. At totally not the bizarre yet bonafide Last of Us podcast. and add that Twitter handle and let us know what you think. Okay, we will respond to the comments. So,
Or not.
um, or not.
Or
We're
not.
both
I don't
busy.
know.
It looks
So
amazing.
that's another thing. Let's talk real quick about our experience with the game
Okay.
and what it is. Just real quick recap. For myself, I played The Last of Us Part One twice. I have not played the actual Part One remake because I'm not gonna pay $70 for it. Someday I will pay for it when it's on a good sale, a couple years down the road. I think The Last of Us is a very, very good game. I think it is a
Hmm.
fantastic example of storytelling and how powerful that can be in video games. Those are my favorite kind of video games. Are just the really strong single player ones, the really good narrative, and really good acting, and a really good example of how video games are better than most movies nowadays.
Hmm.
That being said, Last of Us is not like a top 10 game for me. When people say they love Last of Us as their favorite, I completely get it. I understand it. It just didn't quite impact me like other games have. But I hold nothing against the game. That's not to put it any lesser, you know what I mean? It's still one of the greatest games ever made. Now, you, on the
Yeah.
other hand, are the perfect person to talk about this show with because you're the biggest Last of Us fan that I know.
Yes, I love it. For the listeners back home, wherever you may be, I'm on my fifth run, which it's crazy because in comparison to a lot of people, it's probably not that many. I'm sure there's people that have played it, X amount of times, like crazy.
And how many times have you played
But
part two?
just the one. We will talk about part two another day if they make that in the show. This is about the show. We're talking about part one now. Um, but yeah, I kind of knew a little bit about the game, and then it was free on PlayStation Plus, and I was like, oh, the remastered version. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll look into it, and I played the first little bit, and then uh, I think I got busy and I didn't pick it up for a bit, and then I picked it up like a month later, and I just couldn't put it down. And I was just playing and playing, and right after it ended, I was like, I'm playing that again. And so that's what I did, and then then the third and fourth times are more harder levels, doing grounded, all that stuff. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite game. It's I don't know, everything about it is just perfect. So
Now, you were going to try to finish the part one remake before this, but then you went and started school. How'd that go?
well, okay, so actually, I only played just like a few times before the show came out, and um, when the episode ends, I'm actually just ahead of that. So it was good for me. I played some of it today. If the second episode is, back to where I'm at today, that's crazy long episode, which
Okay.
is something that so I'm actually pretty far into it now, kind of. I still got ways to go.
So you think you actually might be able to keep playing the game alongside the show, or do you think you're going to end up falling behind on that?
I mean, I'm at least a week ahead, so it'll just depend on school schedule and stuff. Because I kind of got lucky with kind of a free day today,
There you
so
go.
you know took advantage.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that gets me into like one of my first notes from the episode. I'm new to HBO series. I've, never watched them before, but this one was an hour and 28 minutes. I turned on the computer and I was like, holy crap, this is insane. So, is that like a normal thing or?
I would say it definitely depends on the show. I am a big HBO fan. I haven't watched all the HBO originals, but most that I have watched, I have really, really enjoyed. And
Mhm.
this is definitely, I think, as far as streaming services go, HBO Max is my favorite, just because I feel like they're much more quality over quantity. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I get shotgunned like I do when I go on Netflix. And you just like, here's 1,000 new shows of all different varieties and genres, and they all suck or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
most of the stuff on HBO I really like. It's not uncommon though for like the first premiere episode to be a little extra long, and sometimes for like the season finale. So like
Yeah,
I was watching Westworld for a while. I fell off on that one about season 3. I just kind of lost interest in it. Season 1 of Westworld though is fantastic, and the season finale of that was like an hour and a half. It's like a movie,
gotcha.
but it's
Which I
really
mean,
good. It's a really good season
yeah,
finale though.
I'm not complaining about the an hour and a half.
hmm Well, one
I was just
thing to kind of
surprised.
go with that point there, as I was watching this, one of the things I was really happy about is that we did a series and not like a movie. Because like a
Yeah.
Last of Us movie would be so rushed and crammed that it
hmm
just wouldn't do it justice. I'm looking
Yeah,
at
you
you,
can't put a
Uncharted.
16-hour game into like a 2.5 hour movie.
Right. Well, they tried to with Uncharted. Actually, they tried to put all 4 games into that one.
I never saw it.
Don't.
Maybe
Just
that'll be a podcast for another day.
just play the games. The games are awesome. The movie's stupid.
Okay. So, notes that I have, like my judging criteria
hmm
is like accuracy to the story,
Okay.
how's the acting, the geographical area, design, how are the infected look, the music and the weapons, especially music, which I've been, very impressed. They even put like tiny parts that's like maybe not, in the score per se, like it's kind of in the background as you do like this little thing in the game. I noticed some of that stuff, which I really liked. Um, but that's that. So that's kind of what I've been going off of for my notes and everything.
Yeah, well, I noticed in the credits we have our boy, what's his name here? Gustavo Santaolalla. I think
Uh-huh.
that's how you say it. I apologize if that's not. That's a very long last name.
Santawalaya? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Santaolalla? Okay.
I mean, if it's like, we speak Spanish, so if
We
it's like
do.
that,
If it's not
then it'd be like
Spanish, I
that.
apologize. I'm gonna look up what he is actually. Anyways, he's back.
Yeah.
He's back for the score. He's doing all the music and everything there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which
he is from Argentina.
I don't know if that means they're just using kind of the score from the game or if he added stuff. I haven't done any research on
It
that.
sounded like it's a new thing. Like the theme was
Okay.
definitely the original theme, but built on. It was bigger, it was louder, it had more stuff going
Yeah.
on in the background. I felt like.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So we'll start kind of, from the beginning. So it starts in 1968 with oh yeah, if you haven't seen the episode, I don't know if I'm if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are are ahead, okay?
Spoilers
So
for both the episode, for the game, uh, and maybe at some point the second game. We may
yeah.
randomly shout out spoilers from the second game. I don't know.
But I mean,
We'll try to
if
keep
you're
it all
listening to
vague.
the if you're listening to this podcast though and you don't know the complete story, I feel like only people like us, that would make a podcast and, have know the complete story, but you've been warned, all right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a big warning.
So it starts in 1968 with like a talk show host and everything, which I thought was pretty cool, pretty interesting way to like explain the whole um fungal infection and all that stuff. Because you kind of get that in the game with the newspapers when you play as Sarah,
hmm
right? Looking around the house, but we didn't really have that in the episode.
Isn't there a little bit of dialogue going on during the opening credits of the game?
Yeah,
Like you kind of hear some
yeah, there is.
like news reports and stuff, right? Are they
Uh-huh.
talking about the
Yeah.
ants in that, or is it just in
No,
the
they don't really
newspaper?
talk about the ants, but they talk about like a weird disease that starts whatever, and then like
Okay.
it's dude, it's all these long brain medical terms I can't remember right now. Starts with a C.
Cerebellum?
No, it's not. Oh shoot, what is it?
Cranium?
Oh, not the game. So, is there anything you wanted to add to like the whole 1968 thing?
No, no, I don't really have any problems with how it opened up there.
Yeah.
With, you know, the limitations of the show versus the game. Uh,
Yeah.
the thing about the game is those newspapers are optional to pick up and kind of look into and read and stuff.
Yeah.
And so some people might run right past it. There's a lot of players that just don't like to read. I'm a player who,
Hmm.
if I'm really enjoying a game, I'm reading everything. I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
everything out. And uh, most recently, I think it really paid off when I played Deathloop last year. And there's tons
Hmm.
of stuff to read in that game. And there was actually conclusions that I made earlier before the protagonist like says it out loud later on because
Nice.
I was reading stuff. But not every player wants to sit around and read. A lot of people that's boring, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you kind of have to have an opening scene like this that kind of sits the audience down and makes you hear more or less the explanation for what's going to happen here. Uh,
Yeah.
as far as zombies go, though, the only zombies I saw was those audience members, man. They are the most like emotionless people I've ever seen in my life. As this guy's telling them about like a doomsday that'll happen in like 40 years.
I feel like they seemed kind of scared,
Yeah, they're probably a little
but
scared. I'm probably just making fun of them.
just because of the way they dress or something in the
I don't know. I
60s.
just feel like they're all just staring like with dead eyes at him.
Well, yeah, I mean, what would you do like if you're it's this is probably like the talk show host, he's cracking jokes, it's basically like you're at the Tonight Show. You're looking for, yeah, maybe something in the news, maybe to learn something, but more like comedy, have a good time. And this guy's
Hmm.
over here, Ant said we're gonna die, and we're like, it's game over. Like, what would your reaction be?
You're watching like James Corden or Jimmy Fallon, and someone's just like
Yeah.
just a Debbie Downer on there.
Um, that's a whole thing. But
I thought
something,
it was a nice different opening that I wasn't expecting though, you know.
yeah, I wasn't expecting that. When it said 1968, I was like, huh? What? Something I thought was interesting. So when The Last of Us, like the game, came out, it was 2013, right?
Yes.
So
As a
they,
matter of fact, that is I can't remember for sure in which game. I'm pretty sure for sure in part 2. But you can find homes that have PS3s in them. Like old dusty PS3s at their entertainment system because the year
Mhm.
the outbreak happened, that was the console.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because if you look at it, it's September, I believe, 26th. That's what it says in the show. I'm pretty sure that's what it says in the newspapers and Joel's house
it's
too.
somewhere in September. You didn't remember the date better
Yeah,
than me.
yeah, September 2013, right?
Mhm.
So you're supposed to play the game. It's like this stuff is happening right now. Now in the
Mhm.
show, it had Joel and Sarah, which we'll talk about, them and what we think about that whole thing later.
Yeah.
But they started in 2003, right?
Right.
So it made the 20 years later part in 2023,
Mhm.
which I thought was, interesting. When it said 2003, I was like, wait, this ain't right. We're 10 years ahead,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I'm not gonna, you know,
I was like,
shoot.
"Oh, this must be Joel's first daughter who also dies before Sarah."
Yeah, brutal. So
Cuz let's see real quick. I've done the math in my head before, but the outbreak was supposed to happen in 2013.
yeah,
And then the real game takes place 20 years later, which puts us in
yes,
2033 for the first game.
uh-huh,
Now, the whole game takes about a year. So by the end of the game, we're about 2034-ish. Yeah, it'd be
yeah,
spring of 2034, I imagine. And then part
hmm
2 takes place 8 years later. So part 2 is taking place in the year 2042.
well, Ellie was 14, and then in part one, but she's 19 in part two.
Is it only 5 years?
Yeah, so it's only 5 years.
Was it just 8 years it took them to make it?
Yeah,
Okay. So then part 2 is 2039.
yeah. So like, Ellie, would have been born like 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Happy 4th birthday.
turning 4 this year. Let's go.
Turning
Let's
4 in the
go, Ellie.
Fedra boarding school. Have
Yep.
fun.
I've never been to Boston.
So for me, the year change kind of bugged me.
Uh-huh.
I didn't care for it as much. It doesn't really affect anything because the technology is all gonna suck during the actual pandemic anyways. But
Yeah.
it was one of those things where I see what you're doing, and
Yeah.
where it's like you're just trying to make it so it's happening today. But whether it happens today or tomorrow, it doesn't matter because the pandemic sucks no matter what. It's not like the technology we had was going to be that big of a difference, between those like
Yeah.
what 7 year difference, I guess.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. Like it kind of when I saw 2003, I was kind of bugged because I was like, that's not right. But obviously, it doesn't really matter. It's gonna 20 years, in the past, like during a whole, zombies and everything, it's gonna be, whatever
it's
anyway.
all gonna suck. It's
Yeah.
like, unless it was like 1830 that started and we're fighting the zombies with muskets, then it's all gonna be the same here. Now that would be
Yeah.
funny. They come with the Last of Us show and they make you think it's gonna be accurate, and then it's all like cowboys. It's all undead nightmare.
Yeah. 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 I was gonna say Undead Nightmare. We
Un-
got horses that can be on fire.
yeah, because you get the four horses of the apocalypse. And I accidentally killed one of mine because I took it off a cliff, and you do not get those back.
Stupid.
I thought it would live. The horse of the apocalypse.
Now we can talk kind of about what did you think? Well, I guess we'll talk first about Joel and Sarah's um, chemistry relationship in game, and then how did they bring that to pass in the
Yeah.
game or in the show?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you go ahead
I
then.
mean,
You go ahead if you got
I
something.
really like Sarah in the game. You know, I mean, she definitely seemed older in the show, right?
Definitely, definitely. I would
Because
say
she's
she's
supposed to
like.
be like 11,
You think she's that young?
but
Is she supposed to be 11 in the game?
she's 11 or 12, yeah.
Okay, I would have said she's like 13 or 14, but maybe she
Yeah.
is only 11 or 12.
But, in the show, uh, and she did a great job. I didn't know what to expect, but I thought she actually did a really good job about like bringing that character to life.
Yeah, yeah. I really don't have any complaints about her performance. Uh, the I sell drugs line is much better in the game than in the show.
Yeah.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
That felt
It is.
that felt weak in the show compared to the game because that line stands out in Last of Us.
Yeah.
And Sarah's one of those characters where you don't spend a ton of time with her, but like both Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2 do, they do this thing where they make you play a certain characters and then it kind of tries to make you develop a connection with the character. Whether
Which
it
it
works
works
or
better
not.
for some than others.
Right, whether
Like
it works for you or
we know
not.
where this is going, right?
uh, and it works really, really well with Sarah.
Yeah.
And so, there's something else I'll talk about later on that kind of has to do with playing from Sarah's point of view and stuff like that versus the show. But what you got for me next?
No, I mean, something kind of if we're talking about that, the whole origin story kind of deal. Well, it takes place in Austin I notice when they're leaving to get to the highway, it's like the exact same shot, right? When they're like, we can go left or right.
Mm,
Same shot, which I really liked that. But something that like I'm not entirely clear. So, well, in the game, Joel kills his neighbor Jimmy, right?
What's going on?
It's the Coopers. Something right with them. I think they're sick.
What kind of sick?
Jimmy!
Dad?
Come here. Come here. Jimmy! Jimmy, stay back! Jimmy, I am warning you!
And I don't remember the family farm that's burning. I can't remember if they say that's the Alden family or not.
Holy hell. That's Lewis's farm.
yeah,
But
I
if
couldn't
it
tell
is,
you on
they
that.
definitely switched it, right? where they had the Alden family is who she was close with, and she went and hung out, and, and then the grandma turns and everything. And then when they're driving past that burning farm, they say, "Oh man, that's Jimmy's place." So I thought it was kind of
Oh,
interesting. They switched it,
interesting.
which I mean makes sense because the way that we were able to connect with Sarah was her, hanging out with these old people, and she was hanging out with some Jimmy guy. It'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah. I guess if you're, because the question does kind of come down to who you making this show for. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're making it for A, the fans, and B, people who have never played the game and might be interested in the show. You know,
Yeah.
HBO subscribers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to try to do something. Obviously, everybody who's played the game knows what's coming.
Yeah.
And people who haven't played the game have no clue what's coming. But either way, you need to spend some time with Sarah
Yeah.
before what goes
Definitely.
down. And since you can't play as Sarah, or just have a camera follow her around while she's at school all day or something, you gotta connect with her somehow. So I guess you watch her begrudgingly go over to her neighbor's house and hang out with a old zombie lady for a minute.
Yeah.
Steal
Which
a
that
DVD.
that was kind of crazy for sure.
So I guess let's talk about the neighbors then.
Okay.
I really liked that scene when she's looking at the DVDs and
Yeah.
you see the old lady who is wheelchair bound start to kind of freak out behind her, and it's
Mhm.
out of focus, so it's
Yeah.
blurry. You're not seeing things very clearly, and that was well done.
Yeah, I agree because it was like, for me, I was like, is it gonna focus on her? Is she gonna turn around? Is she gonna notice? Like, where are they going with this?
hmm
Had me on the edge of my buns.
Yeah, that was a creepy. You probably spilled your water again.
Um. Um. No.
I didn't love how they did the reveal of her as an infected though.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't love that she like goes into their house and it was kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen this, but from the original Resident Evil, the first reveal of a zombie is your character turns a corner and there's a cutscene that starts and there's they walk up and so from behind they're looking at somebody hunched over a body that's like chewing on them and they kind of like slowly look up and turn their head at the character and that's like this very classic reveal of the zombies in Resident Evil and it felt very
Mhm.
Resident Evil when she like slowly looks up at her like that.
Yeah.
I personally, if I could just redo that scene, I would have had her walk in. She sees the blood, she sees the two injured people, and then maybe she sees the wheelchairs empty, and then looks down the hall, and there she is, like standing up and maybe kind of like contorting a little bit.
Oof.
And that
Yeah.
would be like, then she'd be like, oh, Mrs. Neighbor, as she starts
Yeah.
to like kind of like starts walking towards her. It's like, Mrs. Neighbor.
Well, yeah, because they made the runners crazy,
Holy crap, dude! They like
right?
I think he ran on all fours at one point.
Yeah. Well,
He's like
yeah,
running
she
through
was
that
going
kitchen
crazy. Yeah, when he ran through the kitchen, he was flying through everything. And,
until he tripped on a
runners,
screen door.
yeah, right, is the first stage, right, of the infected, which they are like the fastest.
hmm
But yeah, those things were like World War Z zombies.
Yes,
Crazy fast.
they really were. Which that was different. I don't know how I feel about them like bounding on all fours after.
Yeah, which that was kind of weird, but I kind of get like, say it's for I think it's more for the audience if you haven't played it,
hmm
and when you play the game, you have to like take these guys down. We haven't seen any of like that yet, right? So you are kind of scared of them, and they might be slower and whatever, but you still have to face them. So you don't really get the same fear if they're not like freaking out,
hmm
right? So
Yeah,
I guess I can see why they did that.
I guess for me, when it comes to like the scary parts, like the fear aspects of the games, it's usually in like the slow parts. It's in the we're trying to stealth past these things because we can't win this fight. You know, it's
Mhm.
the clickers and stuff like that, you know. There are parts where it's very like fast still, like that one part with the bloater in the basement. That's
Yeah.
like the hardest part in the game, I feel like. There's parts like that, but even that thing's not like bounding after you. It's like slowly walking after you. So,
Yeah.
my hope is that the show turns like those slow, stealthy parts for like
Yeah. Which I
suspense
think they will be able to do that. I've kind of seen in the trailers when they're in the museum in Boston.
with the
Like that's the first time
clickers.
you kind of encounter a bunch of clickers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they will. They should at least, because especially clickers, you can't really rush those, right? Like that,
No.
you have to be quiet, you have to be slow, or you're done. But yeah, so the runners are insane. Something I liked that they put in the show that kind of made connected the dots of why Joel was out in the game, right? Because Sarah wakes up to the phone call from Tommy. She goes and she looks around and he's outside.
Mhm.
I liked how they kind of made it so he's outside and so that she's alone by going to get Tommy out of jail. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess we never really do get an explanation why Joel was out of the house. It also
Yeah.
wasn't anything I really ever thought too hard about. I suppose maybe he went to go check on the old lady next door. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was actually Jimmy. I don't know.
Jimmy, I am warning you!
I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess he did have to get him out of the house. So then he beats the old lady in the head with a wrench, which he promptly
Mhm.
drops on the ground because he won't be needing that again, probably.
Yeah, I thought I was like that. I don't know if that was just for effect
Yeah,
or
good old. I dropped the weapon shot because I killed something with it. You know.
I mean, he definitely learn. He'll definitely learn that. For the amount of times that in the game I have to take 20 minutes to after I wipe out a whole horde to go look around for supplies. I'm pretty sure
Make sure you
he
grab
learns.
Make sure you grab all of Abby's dad's coins, by the way, while you're running
Oh
around.
yes, my favorite part. Love those coins.
Uh,
Um,
I did like the shot as they're driving away, because Joel tells the neighbor to get back inside, and then
yeah,
the two other neighbors come out infected, and Tommy promptly runs over their feet, and
yeah,
the neighbor comes to check on him, and you just see her get devoured
yeah,
back there. That was a good shot. Because it's
yeah,
yeah, what would you do? You just saw your neighbor run over somebody. Of course you're gonna go help, but this is the apocalypse, lady, and now you dead.
yeah. Don't you watch the news?
Have you studied the ants? We've been talking about this since
I bet-
'68.
Did you not study the ants? Goodness. Um. Okay. So I guess now we can get into um. Well, I guess if we do you want to still talk about the origin story, the whole Joel and Sarah thing, or should we move on to the Boston QZ? What do you think?
Yeah, I still want to talk a little more about the origin stuff, actually.
Awesome.
So, one thing that it kind of kept bugging me, but there's no way around this. It was just I prefer the game over watching this as a show, you know?
Hmm.
Was when they're driving around, the shot is so much better when you're playing as Sarah in the game and you are watching from the back seat as you're seeing like the burning house and the family on the side of the road and all the traffic, you know? Like everything's so much clearer to what's happening, and it really does feel like you are a little kid who is powerless in this situation right now. Every time they had to keep cutting back to the characters' faces, it kept annoying me because I was so used to looking out the front window, like from the game. There's no way around that. You gotta show your characters' faces in a show, but I think the game does that whole scene a whole lot better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then there wasn't as much craziness going on too. Like they had some of the stuff where when Tommy's like, "Oh, I can't, run over the people. Oh, we gotta go." And there were some explosions, right? But like in the game, you're just Sarah and with this broken leg. People are on fire. Joel's like, "Don't look," and like all this stuff's going crazy. Like they didn't even get hit by another car when they crashed. Like something flew through the window from the plane or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said there wasn't too many explosions, but they did crash a freaking plane on the
Oh
street.
yeah. So, but like it wasn't the same.
Now that was not in the game, right? The plane.
No,
Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't remember a whole
no.
plane crash.
A car in the game, a car runs into like the gas station and explodes.
So let's talk about the final scene then of the origin story.
Okay.
Of the origin before we move on to the Boston QZ.
Yeah, the scene.
The scene. The thing that hooks everybody in, and it's easily one of the most famous video game scenes at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
When you want people to like see like how good video games are, Last of Us opening is one of the best things you can show somebody. That's like how powerful these games can be, how good the acting is, how good the stories are and stuff. How did you feel about Sarah's death scene, game versus show?
I mean, like we've already kind of mentioned, I think I'm going to prefer game over everything.
Sure.
Right. But I think they did do a good job. I still feel like maybe it's because, I didn't play as her that I didn't, it's hard to beat the first time. Because, the first time that happened, like I'm over here in like tears, like what is going on? You still tear up watching the show, but it's not as crazy. So it's kind of hard to judge like that impact. But yeah, I still think they did a really good job. And it's different seeing like, real people instead of just, it's a game. Obviously, this is a show as well, but it's still kind of like, shoot, man, like it's crazy.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's gonna be very hard for I feel like we'll see if we're proven wrong. Best case, the show might be able to be on par with the game in some things. The game's probably gonna be better than it in almost everything though. This scene though was a pretty spot on reenactment. The shots look very similar. I think Sarah's acting was phenomenal. I think that Pedro Pascal did a great job in that scene. I think the lighting is better in the game. Things are a little bright from like the car lights or something like that in this scene. Probably because I don't know, you can like
you kind of have to.
Yeah, you kind of have to make sure people can see what's going on in a show.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the soldiers' dialogue as much as the game.
It's okay, baby. We're safe. We're safe. Hey, we need help.
Stop!
Please. It's my daughter. I think her leg is broken.
Stop right there!
Okay. We're not sick.
Got a couple of civilians in the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need...
Yeah, because in the game, he's like, oh, but sir, like, they have a little girl. And this, he's just like, okay, I'll do it.
In the game, the guy doesn't want to do it. And then he's kind of like, you gotta follow orders. You can tell, though, in his voice, like, I don't want to do this. This guy was pretty down for it.
Yeah.
Like, no questions
I thought that, too. I was like, what?
I also liked the speed of Joel in the game versus this. There's a little extra pleading in the show after he starts raising his gun, whereas in the game, as soon as he's like, understood, sir, raises his gun, and Joel just goes like, oh crap, and just turns right away, because he's not waiting. He's gonna try to get this over with, and so Joel's got to move now. So little too Hollywood drawn out. I think I liked the speed of the game, but overall the death scene was very, very accurate and well acted.
Yeah, which is really all you can ask for. So it was interesting how they uh, introduced the QZ, right, with the kid,
Yes,
right?
that was different. Like as soon as that
Because I
happened, I
see
was like,
this
is
kid.
this Ellie? Is this supposed to
Yeah,
be
I
Ellie
thought
right
the
now?
same thing because it was just some small kid, but like his hair was long enough where I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. Anyway, so yeah, I thought the same thing, but the characters walking up to the whole thing, and the whole thing happens. They test him, and I saw that it never says like negative or positive, right? It just has the red thing.
Yeah,
So I
red
was like,
means
oh
dead.
shoot, yeah, yeah, red did. Um, so I was like, oh shoot, he's positive, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna give you some medicine. I was like, I was just watching this like, how could you have us for a job? I mean, I know they're gonna like die anyway, so it's better. You could say, right? I
Uh-huh.
mean, that's a whole debate, right? It's like putting your dog down, basically. Do you
Yeah.
want him to suffer and turn into something crazy, or do you just, end it, right? But
I,
that part, I was like, shoot, I cannot have that as a job. That'd be crazy.
I don't know if you were present in the last 3 years, but we had this pandemic that happened,
Oh,
and
what was that called?
I'm pretty sure, I don't know if anyone can remember now. It's
Yeah,
been,
I mean, I was in Honduras for
it was
like
a quick
2 of
little
it.
thing, and those people were really close to that infected girl. that that
Yeah,
seems like a mask up, don't touch them situation to me. Like they're like no gloves, like looking at her cut on her like leg and everything. That I'm like, what are you doing? She's clearly infected.
yeah. I mean, but I think it's more about how is it transmitted,
I
right? It's through
mean,
bites and scratches, and then breathing in pores
right.
or
Which
spores, not pores.
brings
Well,
up another question for me. I'm jumping ahead a little bit for you. But
okay.
when Tess and Joel start moving, going through their little hidey
Hmm.
holes, they
Hmm.
find that infected that's stuck to the wall.
Yep.
Was that a mask situation?
Yes, I was thinking the same thing because in the game, when they're going underneath, they're like, oh shoot, spores. Like that's how the
Uh-huh.
game introduces you to the spores and the whole thing. They
Uh-huh.
put on the mask, they find, that one guy who was gonna turn, so they kill him, right? And then they find like a bunch of other infected. So
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting that. It didn't happen, and they didn't put on a mask. So
So we'll have to
yes,
watch and see if they end up even using masks in the show.
yeah,
Uh,
because like Um, later in Boston, when they're kind of going through the museum, and it's the three of them, they find like another kind of clicker thing that's like stuck on the wall,
uh-huh.
but they don't have masks on that because I don't think there's a lot of spore
Okay.
spreadage or whatever.
Okay.
But in that part of the game, yes. And it'll be interesting because a part when you're just Ellie and Joel, you go through the subway,
Mm-hmm.
there's a ton of spores, and that's when Joel's like, I can't believe you're breathing in this stuff, and she's like, I wasn't lying to you, like I'm immune.
Which is a huge
Right.
part. That's like, there's
Huge,
this
yeah.
there's the bite, but then the fact that she's doing that is like a big eye-opening, like, oh crap, this is real. Because she should be
Yeah.
like coughing now.
Yeah. So I would think they would put masks in it at some point. Why they didn't do it then, I don't know.
So yeah, that was my question for you. Anyways, back to the QZ. So, infected child comes in and gets the shot of death. And then we
Hmm.
go to the next scene, which is they're burning bodies, and the two guys who throw the first body clearly could not be bothered to throw that body any further, and they just kind of kerplunk him right over like the cement wall. He's not even in the
Yeah.
fire.
It's
Someone's
heavy,
gotta,
man.
someone's
It's
gotta
heavy.
go get a stick and push that guy the rest of the way because he's not burning.
Something that I thought was interesting about that scene. Well, we'll talk about it, but like there's a whole stuff in the QZ that you don't really see, right, in game that they kind of put in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like something that I thought was interesting. I mean, we know Joel is super hardened, right? Like he is a bad man, right? As our pal Stephen A. at ESPN would say.
That's what this
He's
podcast
a
is missing.
bad man.
We don't have Stephen A on this podcast. We'll have to see. Well, I'm pretty sure he's got.
Joel Miller.
I want to see Stephen A review The Last of Us 2.
Something I thought was interesting was that Tess goes to get the body, right, of the child, and she looks at Joel and says, "I can't."
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting because, like,
was that Tess though?
Yeah, that was Tess.
Okay. Because I wasn't for sure, and then we cut to Tess and she's getting like beat up, but Joel's like back at home.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Tess. It looked like the same.
Okay.
Now you're making me look bad. I don't know.
Well, that's because when I first saw it too, I was like, "Oh, that must be Tess," but I'm not.
That's
sure.
what I thought.
I'll have to when I go back and look at clips and stuff like that. I will double check and see if it still looks like Tess.
Okay.
Whether that was Tess or not, I don't think that was necessary. I think that if you're trying to get this, the point of the scene is that Joel has become cold to all this stuff now, and what should affect him no longer does, or at least he's trying to make it not. You know what I mean? He's gonna look at that. And he's gonna make sure he doesn't get affected by it. All we had to do was have him look at the body and stop for a second, and then scoop it up and then toss it anyways.
Yeah, like if you wanted
anybody to say anything.
Yeah, like if you wanted maybe like a 2-second flashback of like him holding Sarah. That's it.
Let's see. We'll talk about flashbacks in a minute here. Actually, I'll bring that up. But yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then, I guess another part that you don't really see game is like the executions. That was kind of crazy. Which I guess they have to do that to show like kind of how corrupt and whatever this government is.
Yeah, or it's how the seriousness of the situation, because it really is. If you sneak out, you might get infected and come back in, and then we're all screwed. And so it really is like a zero tolerance thing. So you have to make an example of these people. I thought it was interesting that they were hanging them like pirates, but I guess that's cheaper than bullets, because bullets are going to be scarce right now.
Yeah, and you want to use that on infected. And Last of Us tip for, the game, anybody listening, save your bullets for infected. There's no reason to on people, right? If you can, that's just, grounded peeps. Stealth your way, strangle them, you're good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So let's see. So then we have Tess's real intro.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I guess in the game we don't really know that whole backstory. All she says, 2 guys jumped me, and all it matters is that Robert sent them. So I thought it was interesting that she kind of, I think it was a way to introduce Robert, right? I guess. In the game, you didn't know. She just heard Robert, and he's like, "All right, let's go get him." So you're just like, "All right, let's go get Robert."
Which is really just a time to teach you how combat works.
Yeah.
In the game.
So, it was fine, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of weird. And then I don't know how
why did the
everything
wall
exploded. Up? Yeah, because I think they were fighting Firefly. So it was weird how she, gets out of there. Robert leaves, and then she gets stuck in this firefight thing, and and then just like gets in prison for like a day or whatever. That was interesting, I guess.
Now, what'd you think of how Joel and her are clearly in a relationship, whereas in the game it's a bit more like, maybe they bang every now and then, but there's nothing like really like it's an official relationship. It seems more like they do jobs together, they work together,
Well, I feel like it's kind of, implied in the game, whereas when you're with Bill, he asks where's Tess is because he says, I thought you two were inseparable. So, I mean, it's never like shown like, okay, we're in like a super steady romantic relationship. But then when Tess is about to die too, she says like, if there's enough here, like you have to understand, you have some obligation to do this for me.
That's
So
true.
I could see,
That's true.
in the game that there actually kind of was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm pretty sure it was implied that they lived together, right? She goes to the same spot, like, the drink and whatever.
I don't think they live together in the game though, because at the game start, she knocks on his door. She doesn't just like walk in, right?
Yeah, she just knocks because that's kind of wakes something. He said he's coming.
That
So
that makes
yeah, I
me
don't
think
know
they
if
don't live together, you know? Like, why would you knock on your own door? You forget the keys?
maybe she forgot the key. We
Yeah,
all
forgot
do
the
it.
key.
I don't.
Who you do that? Well, it doesn't matter if you do it because you're locked out of your house every which way. The garage doesn't work.
Right, dude. That's a whole thing.
Tess meets Robert, uh, and
Yeah.
the place, they blow up the wall because I guess he seems to think it's better to just kill Tess than to send her back to Joel.
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't think he blew up the wall. It was fireflies.
well, no, but he was about to kill Tess, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah. Which, yeah, seemed that whole kind of thing with like, she was like, no, don't worry, I'll tell him, that I was jumped by two guys and whatever. It just didn't seem like Tess,
Yeah, like a lot of like pleading and reasoning
Yeah,
in a way.
because in the game when you catch up with Robert and stuff, you chase him down. He's like, "Yo, we'll work something out," and she's like, "Yeah, whatever, f you," and just pops in the face.
Right. Which
Right.
is,
And this, she
yeah.
was more like, you know, right. She's softer. She couldn't take that child's body. She,
Mhm. Now, how do you feel about Tessa's actress?
um, she's fine.
I just think she
I
looks so
guess.
freaking cool in the game that
Yeah.
I wish that we had really tried. The only person to me who looks spot on is Marlene.
Well, yeah, and Marlene is the same. The voice actor is the actress.
Is it really?
It is.
Well, there we
Because
go.
I was watching it and I was like, she has the same voice. And then after, I don't know if you watched it, it has like an end credit thing. Like 2 minutes after the show,
Okay.
like after the credits, they talk a little bit about it. And it had like Marlene, and she was like, I was introduced to this character like 15 years ago or whatever. Like really fall in love with it. And I was like, yo, it's totally her. Like she looks the exact same. She has the same voice. Like that's a great casting choice, right?
Which is, I really like, the cool thing about video games, you don't have to do that. Like, Christopher Judge does not look like Kratos, obviously, but his
Yeah.
voice is spot on. And that's what makes it so,
Whoa.
like, the acting is just great. But you can't make Kratos look like Christopher Judge because Kratos is already established the way he looks from, like, 7 other games. But,
Yeah.
like, Baldur does look like his actor. And I've seen a couple movies with the actor who plays Baldur in it, but I recently watched the Black Phone. I don't know if you know that one.
Mm.
It's about someone who's abducting children, and
Mm.
the main kid's dad is played by Baldur, and he has a beard in it, and
Yeah.
he's an abusive father. And there are parts where he just like looks up at them the same way Baldur looks, and he's like, "Don't let it happen again." And it just like sounds just like Baldur, and I was like, "Oh, dude, this guy's awesome."
So that's something, yeah, I didn't really like is that they walk in there and they're like, oh wait, this door's locked or something. What the heck? Like who's
Someone moved a
blocking it?
piano into this door in the middle of a hallway.
Yeah, right. And then
This apartment hallway's got a piano in it.
and then it ends up being, Robert and his friends that are like dead, and I guess they got in a fight with the fireflies.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting because, the whole Marlene thing, and the whole reason why you end up meeting Ellie is because Marlene's like, where's Robert? And Tess is like, I just shot his booty, and she's like, well, I kind of needed him alive, and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and you don't get that again. You don't get the hardness that Tess has of killing Robert.
Yeah.
You know, so I
Yeah.
didn't really like that. Um, and why are the Fireflies fighting Robert? I mean, it would make sense for if he like double crossed or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the whole car battery thing. We got to talk about that. Joel, he's just in this show, he's all worried about Tommy. He's going to, try and do radio signals, go into this guy to see if he's gotten any like radio calls.
Which is
It's all about
incorrect from
getting
the
Tommy.
game, because in the
Yeah, in
game
the
he's trying
game,
to find Abby.
yeah, yeah. Because he doesn't really care about Tommy,
No,
right?
him
He's
and Tommy are
like,
like estranged because Tommy left him for the Fireflies.
yeah.
Right.
So
So
I
yeah.
thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, they're not, Robert didn't, sell weapons that wasn't him to the Fireflies. Somehow they get in this fight thing. And then it was kind of because I guess there was a cost when Marlene ended up bringing up the car battery so she can get to Tommy, or they can get to Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the start, they kind of had like their whole fighting thing. They're standing off, and then Marlene's basically like, oh, we can't because we're like shot. So you're going to do it. And they were like, wait, okay. He was like,
Even
no, but there
though,
wasn't any reason.
right. Well, like the reason was that like her friend doesn't have an ear anymore, so now she can't cross the country.
Yeah.
And like, I guess you don't have enough people working for you, like another employee that you can send. Like your people
Yeah.
are too incompetent to leave the wall. They only blow up walls.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. She's like, bro, you don't have an ear. You can't go cross country. I was like, shoot, she don't have an ear. She's Vincent Van Gogh.
she got Mike Tyson.
Yeah, watch out. You lost that fight.
Uh,
So yeah, and that whole thing was
well,
kind of
what
meh
is
to
what
me.
is Joel's reason for taking Ellie in the game? Like what is it that gets him to say yes to this?
So the whole thing is, they meet up with uh Marlene. She's like, I'm because they find out that they sold the guns. Like, okay, we need to talk to Marlene, and whatever. And she's like, we can talk about this, but like, we gotta run, right? Because they're after me. So then they go, and she's like, okay, I can get you guys all these guns and more if you smuggle Ellie out of the city.
Okay. So the
So
incentive
that's
is
the
the
whole
guns,
reason in
right?
the game. Yeah, is getting their guns and more. You know, so they're getting like there's a good incentive to that.
And it was guns they were supposed to get from Robert, right?
Yes, because he
Not
sold
not like
their
a
guns.
broken car battery
Yeah,
for a car that also has no gas probably.
yeah. And where's the car? Who knows?
Where's the car? How do you plan on getting a whole car out of the wall? You gotta stick the
How
whole
do you
car
plan on
through
just
your hidey hole?
how do you plan on just leaving the QZ in your car?
I don't know, Joel. It sounds like you didn't think this through. I guess
Yeah,
maybe he had a car outside the wall that he found.
yeah, I guess.
I don't know though.
But the military, they go out and look for parts all the time, so who even knows if it's there? I guess a man can just pray.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
before we move on to any more like Ellie stuff, you
yeah,
know, seeing the QZ stuff, I would say was one of the highlights of the episode for me. Because it was able to delve into QZ life a little more than the game.
yeah.
The game has to follow Joel around, so you basically just see what Joel sees, and the game gives you
Mhm.
plenty. It's what you need to
Yeah.
know. But and this was my issue with the show being made, which isn't just a Last of Us thing; it's a video game movie adaptation thing as a whole issue I have with things. But as I was watching that stuff, I was like, this is what I want to see from this show. I want to see the 20 years in between Sarah's death and the beginning of the game. I want to see Joel and Tess like adapting to this life and going on these runs and living in the QZ and getting to know those two as characters. And then maybe even having it lead up to the start of the game. Uh, the first show that I've honestly seen actually do a pretty good job of this is actually the Cuphead show. Cuphead show did 3 seasons, and the end of the show leads up to the beginning of the game. And that's where it ends. And I was like, finally. Finally someone elaborated on the outside of the game and not just retelling the story of it.
Which I do get that, but for me, I don't know what part 3, if they're gonna make part 3 or whatever, what's gonna entail. I would love, I'd love to play that first, then watch the TV show.
Oh yeah.
I'd rather play
what if
as
part
Tommy.
3 is only a show? You don't get a game.
You just pay $70 for a game, or for a TV show.
It comes with a 6 months for free HBO.
Yeah, you already know that I'm just pre-ordering it.
So, anyways, that's obviously my issue with the whole thing. Is I want something that I can't have. They're not going to give that to me, but that's what I wanted.
And I guess if we talk about Ellie's whole story,
okay.
It was kind of weird for me when, no, there's no kind of, it was definitely weird when they're like, well, I guess the Fireflies had her locked up and all this stuff, and they're like, what's your name? She does the whole thing. Like, she shows the Ellie attitude, which was great. But then when they're like, name, and she's like, Veronica, right? I was like, wait, so like, is this actually Ellie? Or like, is she playing? Or like, what's going on? And then I didn't really, you don't get to know exactly the origin story of Ellie and Marlene's relationship, but in the game it made it seem like they were closer for a lot longer and everything.
Yeah, it really seemed like.
But in the show, she's like, she knew Ellie, right? Because she was the only one that knew the name, and she's like, yeah, I was friends with your mom. I put you in the military school or whatever, but I don't know, it's didn't. And then when Ellie attacks Joel after the whole Robert situation, it didn't seem like she had the same motive. Like in the game, she was like, it seemed like we've been knowing each other for a long time, we're friends. But in this, you're kind of like, would you really kind of like go after a guy right then?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the actress of Ellie?
No one will ever top, Ashley. So that's something that's, I've never seen her work. You said she was in Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she does a good job.
She does a very good job in Game of Thrones.
What you have to understand, my lady, is that...
I understand that I'm responsible for Bear Island and all who live here. So why should I sacrifice one more moment life for someone else's war?
Yeah, we could probably talk about the whole Ellie Joel comparison and everything forever.
Mm-hmm. We'll probably have plenty of time to as we go through the next. How many episodes is this show?
Yeah.
Is it 10?
As far as like, Pedro Pascal, I think he sounded like Joel. Like especially when he was talking to Sarah. I think, he had some of the same kind of Troy Baker voice. Mm-hmm. His outfit is great. Like, he looks like Joel. Mm-hmm. So I think they did a better job of portraying him than Ellie. Mm-hmm. No one will top Ashley Johnson, like I said.
It's a hard role to
in her
follow.
Performance.
It's a very, very hard one because Ashley Johnson really brought that character to life.
She does a pretty good job at giving the whole, like, Ellie attitude.
See, for me, it falls flat.
Okay.
It falls a bit flat, the Ellie attitude, because there is an art form to the sassiness that Ashley Johnson brings to Ellie. Yeah. The way she's delivering these, like, FUs, And Ellie, at the beginning of the game, is kind of like the little dog that keeps barking at all the big dogs at the park. Like, she, in a scrap, Ellie's gonna get killed at the beginning of the game. She doesn't know what she's doing. But she talks real big. She's got attitude. And then as the game goes on, she has to learn to take care of herself.
Yeah.
Especially as we get to winter, you know?
Hmm.
And that's the growth of Ellie as things go on. But I don't know. There's a sharpness to Ashley Johnson's performance that I just wasn't really getting from the sassiness of Bella Ramsey in this one. But
Yeah,
it's a
I agree.
very, very hard role to follow. Ashley Johnson played the character perfectly.
Yeah.
So what can you do? That's a
Yeah.
hard one.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. What can you
I didn't tell
do?
you guys to
That's
make
why
a
I
show.
like.
You guys decided.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like basically, she's fine. Is she great? I mean, I guess she's a great actress, whatever, but it's just so tough to follow that up. That's like you can't even really compare. It wouldn't even
Yeah,
be fair.
right.
Well, one thing I have in my notes that which I haven't really talked about just a little bit is I can't remember exactly when, but they had like the whole dust shot of like, when you're loading into the game, they kind of put that in there where they had like
Oh,
the whole
when was
dust
that?
particle. I want to say it was when,
Was that just your video buffering?
yeah, yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I didn't like notice. It was very subtle, but
Huh.
I was like, okay, that was pretty cool.
That sounds familiar. I feel like I may have seen that too and thought about that.
The guard that buys the drugs off of Joel,
Mm-hmm.
right? His whole thing and how he has to like, beat him to death or whatever. It's not just like two people randomly on patrol. He's like, oh no, I actually know you, and that whole thing,
So
right?
let's talk about that scene real quick. That was the last thing I wanted to touch on. One thing I'll say is it was certainly easier for them to get out of the city in the show than it was for me in the game.
Well, yeah, dude, like they just went through a tunnel and that was it. But
That was it.
in the
They're just out,
game,
and they
you
found
got
one
to go through
guy.
like these whole city thing
There's
and
so many guards too. So many guards you have to stealth past, and if you
so many
screw
like
up, they shoot you.
flashlights and everything.
Yes, it is a big hassle to get out of that city. And when I
Yeah.
first played the game, I played just a couple hours and didn't finish it. And I ended up coming back a couple years later and actually playing the game all the way through. But when I first
Hmm.
played it, I was lent a copy from a friend. And I was playing it at the time in my apartment. I had a pretty small TV. It was kind of like the foot of my
Uh-huh.
bed. And I had a window that the sun just like blasted through. Like I always had the sun coming through my window, like
Ooh.
where I was at. And so my TV always had like a glare on it unless I was playing at night. And I was playing during
Yeah.
the day at that part, and I couldn't see anything. And I was like, screw this game. And I think I might have
Yeah.
stopped there.
Yeah, that's
It was
impossible.
just too dark to see.
Well, I just thought it was interesting, like when they find out that she's positive in the game. She's all like, they're like, oh, what? She set us up and everything, but she's like, yo, why'd you set him up? And she kind of talks and makes sense, and then they have to run anyway. I
Hmm.
feel like in the show it was kind of rushed,
It's very rushed. And
right?
like Joel has like a ring in his ears, and so things are like muffled as well. And it's like
Yeah,
her explaining that this bite is 3 weeks old is like a focus in the game, you know?
yeah,
Like this is what you are hearing, this is what the characters are focusing on, is that she is saying this, look at this bite, this was 3 weeks old. No, that's impossible, you know? Whereas in
uh-huh,
this, it's like something happening off to the side, and Joel's having like a mental breakdown, and that's the focus.
yeah,
Uh, so I agree with you. I think that Ellie explaining why you're smuggling her was extremely rushed, and I don't know why they did it like that. Like
yeah.
if there's a scene you want to do like shot for shot remake of the game, that one's probably one of them because that gets the
Hmm.
point across as to why we're doing this whole thing. Uh,
Yeah,
the soldier, I did like that he points the gun at Ellie, and Joel steps in front, and you can see that it's triggering something in his head. You can see that he's thinking about what happened with Sarah.
yeah. He's not even he like forgets that this isn't his daughter.
Uh-huh.
He's like he just goes full on like father mode,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
yeah,
I did like the throwback there, but
uh-huh.
I didn't like the flashback showing me Sarah again. Because this isn't a late this is the same episode. I just
Yeah,
saw that. And it's like I see that, and he's pointing at, he steps in front of the soldier. I'm like, oh, dude, that's good. That didn't happen in the game. That's a good throwback to what happened. And then it shows me the flashback. I'm like, okay, I'm not an idiot. I know what was happening. You don't need to show it to me again. And so
yeah,
it was good until it bothered me that they had to throw the flashback of what I just saw 30 minutes ago.
yeah. Well, and another thing it's interesting is in the game, right? There's two of them. There's like a guy soldier, girl soldier, and she stabs the one that's like taking the thing, and they take them both down and kill him, right?
Mhm.
Tess and Joel do.
Mhm.
But and it kind of, which I'll be interested to see when Ellie gets her first kill, how she'll react. I hope they do it the right way of
When
being
is
sick and
that?
being like,
Is that when the ladder falls
yes,
and Joel's like
when
under
that,
the water, right? He's being held under the
uh-huh,
water. Yeah, okay.
yeah, and she feels sick. But like even when, like obviously Ellie's seen stuff, right? Born and raised in the QZ and whatever, but even after that part in the game, they like take out those guards. She's like, "Oh man, I thought we were just gonna like stick them up or something." You can still tell she's kind of like freaked out about it, right?
Mhm.
Like you were saying about the whole small dog, big dog thing.
Yeah.
Like if a small dog saw something, it'd be like, "Oh shoot," right?
Oh shoot, I was just
Um,
playing.
yeah, right. I thought we were just gonna stick them up, but then in this, she's like over here smiling as Joel's beating this guy to death. It's I don't know. It isn't. It's kind of like they took some hardness from Tess and gave it to Ellie, and
Where it shouldn't be
that
yet.
yeah,
Ellie has no reason to be really thinking that other than the loss of Riley, which I did
yeah,
appreciate Marlene just quickly throwing that in there,
hmm
because we're from the trailers, it looks like we're gonna get that flashback at some point.
we're gonna get left behind, man.
We're gonna get left
We're
behind.
getting the DLC to all those people that somehow never played it. Um, you'll get it in the show. We're assuming.
And it's good. It's more Last of Us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who wouldn't want that? I mean,
it's
part
good for
two.
the
I
it's
mean,
good for the story that it adds to things.
yeah, they are kind of just heading out. They don't really go to the museum or anything.
And we get that last shot of the building on the building, which is what we also see in the game.
So yeah, I think that is a wrap to this little thing, to the totally not bizarre yet bona fide Last of Us podcast. So to all you listeners out there, if you stuck with us to the end, you're a trooper, because we get sidetracked sometimes, but that's what makes podcast. You want to hear us be human, and you just want to hear a conversation as you go on your morning run, or you're doing the dishes, or wherever you're listening it. So yeah, we thank you for listening. Maybe it won't just be us and our family, who knows.
Mm.
um Hit us up on the Twitter
We do
at
not have a
whatever
Twitter.
tag I made. And we're really excited to do this podcast. We've been talking about it ever since the show when the announcement came. So yeah, we're really excited to kind of dive deep and just see what the show offers to us, even though will it top the game? Probably not.
Absolutely not. There's no way.
Absolutely not.
I
No,
think
Ashley.
even if they somehow delivered the most amazing show in the world, I don't think our hearts would allow us to say it's better. I think we would still be too stubborn to even admit such a thing.
Well, yeah, you actually see, I'm in a contract with Naughty Dog where I can't.
Okay, well, next time you
I'm
talk
like,
to Naughty Dog, tell them to stop making Uncharted movies and just make more Uncharted games for me, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll let them know
If you're
to
gonna cast Mark Wahlberg, make him have the mustache.
all right, yeah. And I'll let them to know that you want all of Abby's dad's coins. They'll mail them to you. Get some replicas.
They'll mail me all of Abby's dad's coin set.
Yeah. But only once you find them. So they're gonna track your thing. They'll see in the trophies, be like, did he find all the coins? Be like, oh, they found this coin. We'll send him that. So that's your motivation to go back, replay part 2 before the announcement of part 3, and so you can get those coins set up.
Who's gonna play Abby in the show? The Rock?
Yo, dude, probably like Gronkowski. I don't know.
Gronkowski with a braid.
Yeah, kind of looks like. And I mean, in part 2, I'm really going to be looking forward to, them eating their burritos every day.
Yeah, because she pays for the extra protein.
Yeah, exactly. She's, just jacked.
And then they slip a steroid syringe in the burrito. That's how they smuggle it to
For sure, dude.
her. Oh man, Abby jokes. I guess we can end with this. Do you recommend The Last of Us Episode 1?
I do recommend Episode 1. Like I said, I'm excited to see where this goes. I would definitely recommend it to anyone. Well, if you played the game, I would recommend it more to someone who played the game than not.
There you go. I think I do recommend it as well. I'm interested in seeing how the whole season holds up. If you've played the game, you might be nitpicky about some stuff. If you haven't played the game, I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know what you think and all that stuff.
Or don't.
Now, or don't. If you made it this far. So I guess the question for all of you listeners and kind of for us, will this be The Last of Us on a podcast? I don't know.
We'll see how much work I have to do.
Yeah, we'll see after post editing. Usually I think it's just a straight cut, just a one shot basically thing in podcast, but we're busy people.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I get this out before episode 2's out. I don't know. I'll try.
Well, we'll see. So there you go, everybody. Thanks for listening, and go out there and collect those Abby Dad coins.
Get Abby's dad's coins. She's looking for them.
Let her know when you find them. All right. See ya.